After the sermon, they marched to Neston Cross in the town centre for hymns and a blessing, followed by tea and the annual meeting. A travelling fair is traditionally held the same week as Ladies' Club Day, and in the past there was public dancing later in the day. At Collins's Fair, the old swingboats and steam-operated carousel of 1910 show a more leisurely age than the fair of today. Claire Johnson of Neston rescued this old film for posterity. The same year, 1910, and Lever Brothers employees in their best Edwardian fashions take the special train laid on by the company from Bebington Station to the Brussels exhibition. Little did they realise the men would be going back again only 4 years later to fight in the trenches. Their loved ones waved farewell. They joined the 23rd Brigade of the Cheshire Regiment. When they arrived in Chester, William Hesketh Lever headed the column as they walked through the city to Chester Castle. The war would be over by Christmas, the Kaiser said so. Over 4,000 served, over 500 were killed, and even more wounded. The village had a large proportion of widows who retained their houses, but a generation of men was wiped out. Kitchener and General Douglas Haig visit Liverpool in 1915, viewing the troops before departure to Europe in the First World War. No one could foresee the tragic consequences for Europe of the assassination of the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo, still one of today's trouble spots. Unique in Europe, the British Army were volunteers. Lord Kitchener, Minister for War, recruited volunteers with the King's shilling. One carrot was that workmates and friends could fight together, and the war would be a short one. The tragedy was that friends, families and workmates would also die together, as they did in their thousands. Families would lose all their sons, and groups of workmates would all perish. Probably 1 in 5 of those men would not return. We now take a look at the experiences of a Wallasey man.
I went to join the army in 1915, but I could not join the fighting forces on account of being underage. But having the first class St. John's certificate, I was taken into the RAMC. And within a month I was on my way to the Dardanelles. Later we were moved right across Italy and France to prepare for the Battle of the Somme on July the 6th, 1916. We were one of the first field ambulances to follow the troops in the trenches, and the sights were really horrific. My experience was really a lucky one in a way, but a sad one in other respects. I was at the tail end of a stretcher, and one of my compatriots was helping me carrying. We had a a wounded soldier from the West Yorkshire Regiment on the stretcher. A shell burst on the trench head. It killed my compatriot and also the man on the stretcher. It buried me, and all that happened was, after being extricated, I found that I had lost the use of my right ear. On the night of the start of the Battle of Somme, it was made worse by the fact that we had a torrential shower just before we went in, and that didn't improve the conditions at all. In many a time we were nearly up to our knees in mud trying to carry stretchers with wounded infantry or artillery on the stretchers.
The Somme. After 4 months of battle, there was stalemate and slaughter. Britain suffered 420,000 casualties, France 200,000, Germany 450,000.
After 20 months in Egypt and France, I came home on leave, and it was suggested to me and recommended that I apply for a commission, which I did. And I think I am one of the few persons that was discharged from the RAMC on one day and gazetted into the King's Liverpool Regiment the next day. From there, of course, I went to France, seconded to the 9th King's Liverpool Territorials, and from then on we saw quite a lot of action.
1917 Ypres and Passchendaele. 500,000 dead and wounded, 300,000 British, 200,000 German.
The night before armistice was declared, there was a bit of a fracas in Nil, and being attached to the APM staff, I was on duty and 2 Irish officers were arrested. And it was my duty on Armistice Day to be their guard, and which happened for 2 or 3 days. And what a day that was. Everybody else celebrating, but poor Joe guarding 2 unfortunate Irish officers.
Passing New Brighton Tower, 2 other veterans of the war enter the Mersey. Wallasey ferryboats Iris and Daffodil provided vital aid in the blockade of the port of Zeebrugge to contain the German U-boat fleet within port. As a result, King George V agreed that Iris and Daffodil should become Royal Iris and Royal Daffodil. As early as 1916, William Lever, who became a lord in 1917, commissioned Sir William Goscombe John, R.A., to design a war memorial to commemorate the dead of Levers. On the 3rd of December 1921, it was unveiled by Sergeant T.G. Mo Eames, who lost his sight in the First Battle of the Somme, accompanied by Private R.E. Cruikshank, who was awarded the Victoria Cross for bravery. The result of war: 1 million British dead and wounded, probably 1 in 5 young men of the population of the day. We take a look at an activity with a Wirral connection in central Liverpool in 1916. At 9 Copperas Hill was the Liverpool Invalid Children's Association Welfare Centre. Mothers and nurses bring children to the centre. The background is interesting, with trams in front of Lewis's old building in the distance.